I don't know how I'm going to get through this review, but we're going to talk about Doctor Who and the story Father's Day. Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters.
I crown you Queen of the Woke!
Let's chat about it. Please do keep it friendly in the chat. And what do you think about the story of Father's Day? What are the best bits about it? What don't you like? For me, I don't think this review is going to be particularly long. Let's just put it like that. So, as I said, we're talking about Father's Day, which was voted by you, the subscriber. So, if you would like to vote on the current poll, please head on over to the post page where you can find it after this video. Oh, and I will be getting a haircut soon, so I'm super excited. Now, Father's Day was written by Paul Cornell. And the Doctor and Rose travel back to 1987. This was at Rose's request because she wanted to be with her father on the day that he died, because no one was with him when he died. The Doctor agrees to do so, surprisingly. So they land on the street, they go to watch, and Rose doesn't want to do what she wanted to do in the end. Because of that, she asks the Doctor if she could try again, and for some reason, the Doctor agrees. He lets her do it again, however, this time she interferes, big surprise, and she saves him. This essentially causes a rip in time, so you could say, because there is a man who is alive now that shouldn't be. Reapers appear, and they are there because of the temporal paradox and no more Time Lords. They are essentially there to eliminate what's happening. They all end up inside the church. The Doctor doesn't really know what he's going to do in order to save them all. He doesn't make any empty promises to them, but he also doesn't have a plan either. Rose was handed her own younger self whilst they are in the church by her father, which then causes the Reapers to enter the church. The Doctor then nobly sacrifices himself to the Reaper because he's the oldest there with time, and there's no Doctor to save them. This results in Rose's father, Pete, noticing the car going around the church outside. Around the church outside, it's stuck in its own paradox, so therefore he sacrifices himself in order to save everyone and fix time. All right. This is a companion-centric story. Companion-centric stories are okay from time to time. This one I find very much a bind to watch. It's good. I will say that it's good, but bringing myself to watch it is a mega challenge. It resulted in me asking a question on my post page about which stories that you find difficult to watch as a Doctor Who viewer, because it just got me thinking. There's got to be one, at least one for every single one of us, right? Father's Day is definitely one of mine, as is Inferno. Okay, and we can agree to disagree on that in that case. This story has been out, for about 20 years now, and that whole entire time, I think this is about the 5th time of watching it. This is the one when I do a rewatch of Christopher Eccleston's run that I will skip over. I was trying to put my finger on exactly what it is that I have against it, and I think I have. Okay, I think I have. And we'll get to that in a little bit. I don't have many notes on this. I really did think that there would be more, but there aren't. So let's talk about the positives before we get to the negatives, because there are positives. There are lots of positives about the story. So the opening, I like the opening. We get a bit of a backstory. We have Rose narrating it, and we get a sense that this very particular story is going to be pretty sad. It's not going to be a happy one, that's for sure. Most stories in Doctor Who either start off with a lot of action or perhaps something that is pretty happy and not so downbeat, but this one starts off pretty downbeat, I think, in my opinion. What I do like is when it cuts to the TARDIS, the Doctor is like, well, I can do anything. But then he's immediately concerned about Rose and why she's asking this. And I would be too. Why are you suddenly asking this? And also, are you okay? How do you feel? He allows her to go to the wedding, which I suppose isn't too bad because they're at the back. They're not interfering. They're not doing anything that will perhaps cause a major rupture in time or any problems for the Doctor. It's the next bit, though. And I think that the Doctor is quite reckless in this story. And I always call it out with Doctor number 15, who is incredibly reckless, more so. The Doctor This doctor, Doctor Number 9, is reckless in this story. Straight up reckless. When you said that she could go and be with her dad, that was always going to change something within Rose's memory anyway, theoretically, right? Okay. I had misgivings about that, but it doesn't happen straight away. It happens at the end. I will say, even though it is reckless, he is trying to, in his own way, perhaps show some type of compassion towards Rose. We know he's an alien, so he doesn't always have the same compassion as perhaps a human being would, which is something that Conan Baker has made a point of, actually. But I think he was attempting to do that now, in that present moment in time. I'm not making excuses for his behavior, but I think it was compassion in his own way. Everything that he attempts to do for Rose in this story is out of him trying to be kind and considerate and compassionate. So rather than trying to force Rose's father into dying, he tries to find a way around it, whilst really at the back of his mind, you can tell that he knows that it's in order for time to be fixed and for the Reapers to go away. He knows really that Pete has to die. Does this fit in with the facet of the Doctor? I think so, especially New Who. New Who for sure, 100%. He will try and make it so that it doesn't happen, but it really does need to. There's a possibility as to the reason why he didn't have a plan. He wanted Rose and her father to come to that conclusion themselves. I think Pete is a bit of a smart cookie, really, because the Doctor, being the Doctor, sacrifices himself. We see jeopardy, the Doctor dies, essentially, for just a moment, which is a very Doctor thing to do for sure. This is what prompts Pete Tyler to cotton on to everything that is going on. He works it out very quickly that Rose is from the future and is his daughter, but he knew really in order to resolve the whole entire situation that he would have to die. He sees the car that is stuck in the paradoxal loop, and so he decides to sacrifice himself in order for time to return to, well, kind of return to normal, I guess you could say. Now, I really like that. Now, it should have been Doctor, really, that should have saved the day here. But Pete shows his initiative and he takes responsibility as a father should. And what I really like about that is it does give Rose that moment to go to her dad and be with him that she wanted to be when he died. Now, that does change Rose's memory of what her mum told her. So I do have some misgivings about that. It's minor. Should I let it slide? I don't know. What do you think? I think that the casting choice of Sean Dingwall for this particular role was very good. I think he balances perfectly with Camille Coduri and Billie Piper. Sean and Billie somehow, in a very short space of time, make us believe that they are father and daughter in this story. That's not an easy thing to do, in particular because we've already seen Jackie Tyler. We're more familiar with her, aren't we? And the dynamic between her and Rose. So we don't know what the dynamic is going to be like between Rose and her father. It's a very touching dynamic. This is where I get into my negative, though. Yes, those moments are touching. However, it's way too chatty. But this happens when it becomes a companion-centric story, and I think this is why I struggle to watch this one, because it's too much of the chatty versus maybe one scene where they have that chat. And this is really a downfall in the writing. There's too much of it going on here. The show is called Doctor Who. This is not called Rose Who or Rose and the Doctor. It's called Doctor Who. So therefore, I really want it to be focusing on the Doctor and his companion. The only series where I ever seem to let that slide is series 4 for New Doctor Who, which I've not covered on this channel as of yet. But in my opinion, that's just peak RTD. It's a fantastic series. But that is another time. The one thing that I wrote in my notes is that Baby Rose should have been handed to Rose much earlier on in the story, because what happens after that is the Reapers, who remind me of the Crullitanes from School Reunion for some reason, finally get into the church. I wanted to see people continuously disappearing. I wanted to see that happening physically on screen at least a few times. Wanted action. I wanted adventure. I didn't want to just sit there and chat and have a little bit here and there. Yes, it does add more depth to Rose's character and to Jackie, but it doesn't have to be the main focus of the story. But they made the main focus of the story the father-daughter relationship. We see some people do go missing, but we don't see how that happens. It's just implied that they do. It's just the extras, sorry, and the father-in-law. Obviously, it's fine to have the extras go missing. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it would have been perhaps a lot nicer to see the main cast go missing in that church. That's what I think anyway. And I think that in this story, there was also an image of absolute jeopardy being painted here, with these Reapers flying around and taking people, the fact that the TARDIS is gone. We know that there's immediate danger. So the jeopardy has been painted. We know that time is going wonky because of what's playing through on that radio, yet, and we get the first phone call, Alexander Graham Bell. But we don't really get any jeopardy beyond that much at all, in my opinion. And I just wanted Christopher Eccleston really to get his acting chops working here. He wasn't given that much to do in this story. Sure, he gets angry because of what Rose did, but at the same time, that's his own recklessness. He doesn't apologise for that much. Not Christopher Eccleston, I mean the Doctor. And he does, as true to his character, promise that he would try to save people, which is a good thing, but we don't really get to see it because there's too much focus on chatty. It's just, it's kind of a nothing burner, this story. It does have some really good effects with the time, and I think that the TARDIS emerging into the church is a very pretty effect. But other than that, everything that I've just said, I don't rate this story particularly high, even though it's good. It's a bit weird. I'm contradicting myself. I just find it difficult to watch. I told you it was going to be a short one, but that's not a problem because, well, I did ask you what you thought of it as well. So we're going to take a look at those comments too. I do ask you what you think because I think it's important to ask you what you think. So Mark Postlegate says, I found it very touching when Pete asks Rose if he was a good father, and she can't tell him why she can't answer that. That's my strongest memory of that episode. Cornell did emotional content in Who far more sincerely and effectively than many of the writers who seem to shoehorn it into a checkbox on the shopping list. When Cornell did it, it rang true. Yes, now, despite me heavily criticising the chatty parts, I do agree he does write that very well. I was checking his background. It seems that he's got a lot of novels to his name, which probably helps when you're writing this type of stuff for Doctor Who. It did feel like he was telling a story. Grant Mason says, it doesn't make a great deal of sense for the Doctor to take Rose back in time to her recent past. However, it is at times very touching and an episode that I will happily rewatch. You're right. It really doesn't make a great deal of sense for the Doctor to take Rose back in time. I'm wondering if this was something that Russell T Davies asked Paul Cornell, to do. Now, Farsight says, Paul, it was another of those stories where the Doctor didn't do a lot. To me, he was incredibly stupid taking Rose back to see her father get killed. He should have known she would intervene. And I would question as to whether or not this is something that I would consider to be within the character of the Doctor to do. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head if he ever did that prior to these stories, but I can't remember. There's been so many stories. Lepta Fireforce says, silly, touching a previous version of yourself is dangerous. The Doctor has done that repeatedly to his previous incarnations. Yeah, he does do that. You're right. And I've wondered at times why he didn't implode or explode or whatever happens. We see it with the Brigadier and we see it here, but why never with the Doctor? What's so different about that? Well, anyway, that is what I think. Let me know what you think. Check out some of the other content I've picked out for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye. Thank you for watching today. Don't forget you can join me on my other platforms as well. I've got YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, X, TikTok, Instagram, Locals, Substack, and I also have a Discord. Everything is linked below.